Hey crafty friends, Chelsea here. I just recently realized when I was looking through some of my completed pages that I am doing something over and over again on my pages that I didn't even realize. It's a style of design that allows me to add lots of photos, lots of pictures, and I didn't notice that I kept doing this over and over again. So today, we're going to start off by making a layout so I can walk you through this design concept. And then at the end of the video, I have a huge stack of pages where I have used this style in several different ways, and I want to give you some examples of that. So make sure you stick around to the end. And now let's go ahead and have a look at what's on my desk. I figured since I want to fit lots of photos and journaling onto this page, I would look for something where I had a lot of portrait photos. I use portrait 3x4 photos all the time. And one of my favorite things to do with them is to make a grid. So I don't know if you guessed that that was the kind of design that I'd be going for. I have lots of different variations on a grid, but for this one, we're going to do a pretty standard 2-page grid that goes from one page to the next. Now, this is just a fun afternoon I had with my daughter, and she is having an absolute blast. And this was when we got a new mattress, and we brought the mattress down to the old one down to the living room so that she could bounce and tumble. And between the couch and the mattress, she had the best time, which I think you can tell in these photos. And she's wearing her cute little pink tutu, which is adorable. And I think I should be able to fit quite a few on here. Now, I did want to have one that kind of showed my perspective. I was down low shooting upwards at her. And so I printed this one as a 3x8. I thought that would be a good measurement because it would basically be the height of 2 rows of 3x4s, roughly. I am going to mat it, I think, to make it exactly how I want it. But I think grids are a fantastic way to fit a lot on your page. And I also find myself using them when I have maybe a more complicated design or photo enlargements, and then I want to add something else. Somewhere around here, I know I want to bring in some paper. So I should show you what paper I'm going to use. I looked in my collection for papers that would go with the colors in these photos because I did start with my photos this time. Sometimes I start with the paper first. Actually, a lot of the time I will start with my paper and find photos to match. But I really wanted to scrapbook these photos. They've been sitting in my to scrapbook folder on my computer for quite a while. And I thought they'd be lots of fun in kind of a repetitive grid design. So I am pulling in the Perennial Lavender paper, which is kind of funny because purple is not a featured color on here. And this paper is gorgeous. I originally didn't get it because I figured it would be retiring soon, but this is actually being continued to in this new annual catalog. So it's going to be around for another year still. And it has gorgeous colors. In case you don't know, purple is like my favorite color. I love butterflies. I love florals. This one has a really nice craft undertone in it. There's a lot of craft paper as well. And just gorgeous. Absolutely gorgeous. This all over pattern. This is the one that I'm going to mostly be using today. Something subtle. Oh, that's the back side of that one. And I'm also going to use this pattern. I kind of was a toss-up between the leaves and this side. Now, this doesn't exactly match the pillow. The pillow is more of a blue, but she does have a little bit of this greenish color in her shirt. And I'm just not going to be too picky about it. I think this purple will go really well with these colors. There's a little bit of purple in her shirt, not a ton, but I think it will pop that pink and blue that's in the photos. I'm really, any excuse that I can find to use purple, I will take it. I've cut myself some strips. I'm not sure how long I want these to be, or how high I should say. I want them to be the 12 inches in length, but I'm not sure how high up I want this to go. And I want to use a strip of this purple as well. I left myself a little bit of extra paper just in case I want to rip the edge, give it some texture so it's not quite so linear. I mean, it's still gonna be pretty linear, but I think tearing your paper just adds another element of texture and breaks things up just a little bit. Now to make the math kind of work out here with our 3x4 photos, I'm going to mat this with a 3¼ by 8¼ and that will help line this up. I love a good grid that's like perfectly lined up. That makes me very happy. And then for my journaling, I cut it down a little bit and I have a mat for it here because I wanted to balance it with this other spot. Now, I could mat all my photos, but since I'm putting this onto a white background, I don't feel like I need to. I feel like the grid kind of makes it look like white photo mats, and there's enough color in my pictures that I don't think they need to be matted, and those white gaps in between are the perfect way to add some separation between my photos. For my title, I want to bring in this new set. This is the Party Alphabet dies. So these are a really good size alphabet. I think they're between 2.5 to 3 inches tall. The tallest one is almost 3 inches. And we have punctuation in there. We have an ampersand. We have some of the different characters for French. If you're trying to spell some French words, that can come in really handy. This just came out in the annual catalog. And at first I was wondering if it would be too big, but I think it's going to work out perfectly. So I would like this to say, "So fun." I could overlap my words a little bit. I could also pop them up or even add layers under them to make them stand up a little bit more. And then I love mixing fonts. So I have the word much done in a print then cut. So this is just printed and then cut on my Cricut. And I think I want to bring these closer together. Doesn't that look fun? I love that. And so I'm going to put them fairly close. And then much, I think I'm going to pop up on dimensionals. So it has some dimension. And I think I will put these ones just down straight. I might even use my ruler just to get them like super straight on there. Now, as far as embellishments, I want some embellishments, but I don't want them to take away from the photos or take over the page. So I'm going to bring in one of my new favorite sets. This is Extraordinary Flora. This is a bundle. So you have a stamp, and my die is already here because I've been doing some die cutting. Notice how the die is all in one piece. That is so that you can die cut all of these at the same time, because the stamp, let's see if you can see it, is all one piece. So that's one big stamp. You could use it like a background stamp, but you can also stamp and then die cut them out in one fell swoop. Now, what I really love about this set, I think this is great for time saving, but what I really love is that there's coordinating washi tape. And I love a good washi tape, and I especially love it because these sort of had a watercolor finish to them. So when you die cut them, it looks like you have all these pretty watercolor florals. And this is a bit transparent, so you're seeing some of the color from the background, but I think it gives you a good idea. There's two colorways. We have the pinks, and then we have the purples with a little bit of pink as well. And you can see the leaves are a little bit more on like the teal side, and then these leaves are more on the like yellow green side. So when you want to die cut this, you can put this right onto a piece of cardstock, a piece of vellum, acetate, and I will show you how to do that. I'm just going to slide this page out of the way. Here's some white cardstock, and I'm actually just going to plunk this right down here. Now the nice thing is it's washi tape, so if you don't get it like perfectly placed, it is forgiving. You can peel it up and try again. Now when you go to line up your die, I recommend that you line it up with this little flower up here, and I would definitely use washi tape to hold your die in place, because this washi tape has a little bit of slip to it and your die can shift in your machine. It's very easy for it to shift and then for your cuts not to be straight. So this is basically like magic. You have all your perfectly colored and die cut pieces. They just pop right out, and it's super easy to build floral clusters, and they are super pretty. Now you can get some different looks depending on what you put your washi tape on top of. All right, so I have 3 different finishes here. Just double check, make sure I have them on the right one. So here's on the white cardstock. You can see that is the brightest. It looks very much like a stamped and die cut image. And then here we have the washi tape put on vellum first and then run through. And then here I put them on acetate, so clear acetate. And when you put them over something, see if maybe you can see it on there. See how it's way more transparent? Then this one is still transparent, but not as transparent as that one. And then of course, the white cardstock is not transparent at all. So depending on what you put these on, you can get a different look. And then remember, if you have the stamp set too, then you can also color your own. So you can do them in any color way that you want. I am going to use these flowers to build some little clusters for my pages today. I don't want to have huge floral clusters. I want to keep them kind of manageable, so we still have some white space on here. Okay, I've been kind of playing with placement, trying to figure out where exactly I want my grid, how far apart I want my photos. When it comes to height, I'm using this 3x8 to help me kind of figure out the spacing. And once I have the height spacing, then I can use however big that gap is in between to space this way, so that I know that I have enough space in between so that my grid looks even. Now I will say my photo paper is curling a little bit, so it probably would have been a little bit easier to do this if I had put them onto another layer of paper so that they're laying flat like these are, because when it curls up, it's a little bit hard to see if it's like perfectly lined up, especially the gaps look different sizes. I want to layer something under this photo before I go any farther. So this is actually a rub-on. This is a new product from Stampin' Up. They're the Metallic Textures rub-ons, and they come with like a paper backing that covers up the adhesive. So these are actually adhesive, kind of like stickers, but you rub them on, and I'll show you that. So you don't want to be moving these around without the backer sheet. So usually what I do is just cut around the shape that I want, and then I can place it wherever I want onto my page. Now you do get 2 sheets of each pattern in gold, and then you get the same 4 sheets in silver. So 2 of each pattern in each of the colors, gold and silver. They are just gorgeous, and there's lots of like little speckles and stuff, so I'm thinking I might bring some of that in on the other page as well. I love purple and gold together, so I think I'm going to use the gold instead of the silver. And then what I want to do is just take this backer off of this. And then remember, this is sticky, so I kind of want to place it where I want it to stay. And then I'm just going to take my bone folder. You could use a popsicle stick. You could use whatever you have. Probably even your fingers would be fine. I'm just transferring it. So I'm not pushing hard. I am just using a little bit of pressure and making sure that gets contact with the paper. And I have a couple of the little speckles here on the outside that need to transfer. And then I like to just slowly peel back this clear sheet. The rest of this is waste, but just slowly peel it up. And that way, if you missed anything, you can quickly lay it back down, rub again, and just make sure you get a full transfer. But I don't know if that's showing up. I'll tilt it in the light so you can see it better, but it is gorgeous. Gorgeous, gorgeous. And then I can go ahead and adhere this over top. I kind of wanted it peeking out from behind my photo. And I would like to bring in a little bit of text. So I have this that says, "Oh, happy day." And this is actually a stamped image from this new set called More Messages. And this is done very similar to the flowers, except there's no washi tape. But we have all these sentiments all on one stamp, and it is a red rubber stamp. And then we have one die that cuts out all those messages in one pass, which is such a great way to make like a bunch of sentiments for your cards. And there are a few that actually work for scrap pages as well, like the Oh Happy Day. And so that's the one I'm using on here. I'm going to go ahead off camera and stick the rest of these down. When I'm doing a grid, I really just try to lay it out as even as I can, and then I just start sticking them down one at a time, making sure I'm lining up the bottom edge. And then as I stick on this one, I'll make sure I line it up with this edge and with the top edge. And that usually ends up fairly even. You could definitely use a ruler for placement, a T-ruler, hook it over the edge of your mat and make sure that it's going straight, but I usually find eyeballing it ends up pretty even. I have finished adding everything, stuck all my flowers down, added some more rub-ons. I can't wait to show you up close, but I wanted to mention that I did add some die cuts to all of my washi tape clusters. And I just used this Flowers of Beauty. I used the die set. This is currently in the last chance section and it is marked down. So if you wanted to grab it, it does have some really nice little sprigs, lots of flowers, kind of some more like wildflower designs on it. But I just used that one leaf cluster and trimmed it down in size to kind of fit with my clusters. And I cut that from one of the papers in this collection. I just used the green side. So let's have a look up close. You can see that beautiful shine of the gold foil. I have popped up just a few of the flowers. Most of them are down flat. And I have that ripping detail along the bottom. And then just that nice linear grid that stretches across both pages. I did add my rub-ons after I had stuck down my flowers because I just wanted to for placement. And I tried to not stick everything down super flat so that I could get the rub-ons underneath. I really love this one. This was a couple of different images on the rub-on sheet. There was kind of more a round one, and then there was this sort of splatter image. They are just gorgeous, and they do have a little bit of a raise to them. You can feel them on top of the paper, but they are pretty flat and super reflective. And then down here, I actually brought the gold dots up and onto that N. Now, I think these would work so good for decorating these large letters. You have so much room where you can doodle, you can add rub-ons, you can stamp on them, you can emboss them. There's so many ways you can use these. And just look at all that gold splatter. I had a feeling I was going to use up the splatters before anything else, and I would say I'm on track to do that. And I'm pretty sure this will not be my last pack of these rub-ons because they are just so awesome. And I'm glad there are so many sheets in that pack. So there is my simple grid layout. It spices it up a little bit because I do have that 3x8, but of course you could definitely do 2 3x4s and just have it the same all the way along. And now I want to show you the other layouts that I have pulled. I am going to go through these layouts fairly quickly because a lot of these are on videos on my channel, whether in a layout share or a standalone like process video. So I'm not going to spend too much time talking about each layout. It's more for all the different ways that you could do a grid. You can see on this one, this is a double page grid. It's not exactly the same though from page to page. Here, this side is a little bit taller. This side is a little bit longer. And you see I worked in another odd size photo. So this is 3 3/4 by 9 3/4. And basically I just try and do it so that the math works out and I get a nice grid. Now this one doesn't have photos, but it is that 2-page grid design. It does flow from one onto the next. You can see here, because I'm using several different sizes, we have 3x4, 4x6, 3x3, 3x4 landscapes. And then I did fill in with like a little journaling spot. I have another journaling spot there just to even things out so that the measurements work out. Here's another 2-page design idea. This one also does not have photos yet, but you can see I have the exact same photo sizes all the way along. So we have 4 on this side, 2 on this side. still creating that nice grid that flows across the 2 pages. You're going to notice that some of these layouts have journaling, some of them don't. Some of them don't have photos or journaling yet, and that's because I was going through journaling on some layouts when I noticed this pattern of the grids happening. I can't believe I didn't notice before how often I use grids in my pages. So here we have repetition again. We have 4x4 photos and then 4x3. And this one is a journaling spot. So often I will do that, substitute a photo for a journaling spot or some sort of decoration. But this one is consistent. And this time I have only 2 photos on this side and then a grid of 4 on the other side. Now, I would love to hear down in the comments, do you do grids a lot? Do you have something else that you find yourself doing a lot as far as like certain design concepts? I know for me, I use a lot of the same colors. I love a lot of the same icons, which I had noticed before. I just never noticed how many times I use grids. So here we have very similar look. We got 4x4s and then 3x3s, or sorry, 3x4s. And then I've spiced it up a little bit over here with 2 photos kind of on an angle. And this one actually, this is first haircut. And so I actually have some flip flaps to fit in all of the pictures, plus a little lock of hair. Had to include that somewhere, and flip flaps are definitely the way to do it. I'm so glad that Stampin' Up! Now carries flip flaps as well. Now I have a few single page designs, so a single page grid. And this one was really fun. It looks like it's kind of printed on the background, but it's not. I have a video on my channel for this one, and I did actually print out the photos, cut them down, and adhere them to the white background. I did my journaling on my photo. And then after I had the photos down, I put the paper over top. This one was actually inspired by a card design, and it is just a really cool layout. I still love this one. Here we have a grid that's right in the center of my layout. So these are all 3x4s. I have 2 portrait, 2 landscape, and you can see how they make like that perfect square in the middle of my layout. And this has a very strong square design theme because I have all these square layers and then a square grid in the middle, but it's kind of broken up by all the clusters of embellishments and then all the stamping that's going on in the background. This is in a video on my channel as well. Here we go, another grid idea. You can't go wrong with this. Brings your eye right to the center of the page. And yes, we have some nice bright embellishments going on down here with these Easter eggs and my big title. I believe this is a Cricut title. And then we have our grid, again, with room for journaling fitted in there. All right, now this is what I would call like a classic grid. This layout is in one of the Creative Design Team sketchbooks. And what I mean by a classic grid is that I have something fun going on the left page, and then the right page is a grid. Often I will do this where I create one page, I have one idea for that, and then I don't know what to do on the next page, so I will do a grid. And this is like a very common grid. You'll see these everywhere. And they are good as a standalone page. If you do single page layouts, that contains everything you need. You have a title, you have some journaling, and then you have lots of room for photos and embellishment. But I think it's even more fun once you add another layout beside it. And this one is also on my channel. Here we go. We have another kind of classic grid going on here. And you can see here, this page really doesn't coordinate with this page. Like it does because I'm using the same products, the same papers, but you might think I would continue this kind of banner design. A grid is one of those things that you just can't go wrong with adding a grid to your layout. I love how many photos. Here I did a ton of stamping, created these little scenes with stamps. I actually think this was part of a CDT membership class. Can't quite remember now if it was a class or if I did it as a video on my channel, but I know I videoed it at some point. If you guys have questions as you're seeing these layouts, feel free to leave them down below and I'll do my best to answer them or at least point you in the direction of the video that goes with this layout. Here's my last one for kind of a classic grid. This is a little bit of a smaller grid. We have 4 3x4s here. And then you can see I actually have grids of pattern paper. So I have squares of pattern paper in the background here. So we kind of have a grid on grid. And then we have a grid on this side. These photos are not, but this side is. And like I said, that's often what I'll do. Have something going on this side and then just add a grid to the facing page. Okay, this layout here, this is the start of what I would call an incomplete grid. I do this fairly often as well because sometimes I find it a little bit more interesting to look at and doesn't quite look like a grid. This is from my Regal Fall Scrapbooking Workshop Guide, and you can see here I do have a grid of photos, but they are not perfectly lined up. They're lined up in the middle, but then because of the dimensions of the photos, there's all these opportunity for embellishments. I love these layouts. They are some of my favorite layouts that I've made in the last year. And if you have not seen this video on my channel, you should definitely go watch because I show you how to make these leaves and build these clusters, and they are just so much fun. So here we go, another incomplete grid. And we basically have almost an incomplete grid on both pages. I have the starting of a grid here, but you're like, oh, that's not 4 photos. It doesn't really make a grid. So in that case, this side is definitely a grid. But because I used another 6x4, instead of adding a 4th 3x4, I could have done that and then I would have had like a classic grid. I added this 6x4, which left me room for my journaling and embellishments. I like doing this. I think it just adds some interest. It breaks it up. It's not quite as linear as a classic grid, which, as you know, I don't have a problem with, but sometimes you just got to switch it up every now and then. This is a layout of my little monkey. I love this layout. He's obsessed with food in general, but he loves McDonald's. And if you dare bring some in the house, you'd better be giving him those French fries or he will take you down. He might only be 6 inches tall, but he will take you down. And you can see I've done a similar thing here. I would have a perfect grid if I added another 3x4 here, but instead I left that off, I filled it with embellishment and my journaling. So I would definitely call this a grid, but an incomplete grid. Here is one that I actually just finished. I made these on Zoom with my customers, and this is a design by Julie Carrier. She has a whole workshop guide with 6 layouts, so 3 double-page layouts, and you can see she also used the incomplete grid. Now you could call it a complete grid because there is a 4x3 piece of paper here, but I think because your eye is really drawn to the photos, I'm going to call it an incomplete grid because we have our title put here instead of another photo. You could easily, though, put in another photo and you could put your title along here, or you could move it across to this page. Did love making these pages, though. They are gorgeous. If you're looking for that, it's on Julie's channel, The Scrap Zone, and it's her mixed media florals workshop. Okay, you might be wondering, am I done yet? Not quite. I'll try and hurry. I have what I would call faux pocket page grids. So when you have like plastic page protectors that have the individual pockets in them, that is definitely a grid. But I enjoy making those grids just on a regular layout. So this is another one from the Regal Fall Scrapbooking Workshop that I did. And it's a little bit different because we have this extra piece here, but definitely still a grid. You can see my outside lines are very symmetrical. Everything fits within that grid. And then I have the beautiful embellishments kind of overflowing the grid. That is one of my favorite things about doing faux pocket pages instead of pocket pages is I can have those embellishments going out, spilling over the edges, and just softening that really linear design and making it just a little bit more interesting. Now I could have showed you several pages, but I will just point you to the video. I have a video on my week in the life for 2023, and I did the faux pocket page thing. I have a whole week of layouts of where I did those faux pocket pages. Basically, I printed all these out, I trimmed them down just slightly, and then I just left that white border, kind of like how I did my grid today on the layout I made today. I love how much fun this is to work with, but it's also fun because you can mix lots of different things from the same day, and it doesn't matter that they don't go together because those lines are kind of breaking things up. You can see I did the same thing with my embellishments spilling out over my edges and just creating some movement on my pages. Here's another one. This is the one from Sunday. I do love a good photo enlargement, so I used some longer photos on here, but I also used like some 2x2s. And this is a technique that I definitely want to keep in my back pocket because I am always so happy with how these pages turn out. So you can go check out the video if you want to see all the layouts that are in that series. Okay, I discovered something really funny while I was looking through all my layouts once I decided I wanted to show you all these different grid ideas. And I had to laugh. I have lots of pages where I have two 4x6 photos, not always 4x6, but very often two 4x6 photos on the left page, some sort of grid on the right page. You can see here, this is an incomplete grid because I have my leaves there, but it's kind of hilarious once I start looking at it, how many pages I found, and I didn't even have to look that hard. So here's another one where I had the 4x6s, and then over here you see I have a smaller grid with 3x4s. I have used this pattern a lot where I have 4 3x4s. I just take a ton of portrait photos, and so I'm always looking for good opportunities to have more 3x4s. This one is slightly different, but same thing. Left page has 2 photos. They're slightly smaller than 4x6 because I trimmed them down narrower to fit in the amount of space that I had. But same sort of idea, 2 4x6s and then a grid. And you can see I spiced up the whole grid by adding a 4x6 instead of another 3x4 or a 4x4, which would have fit perfectly in here, a 4x4. But I love this layout because it's a little bit different, a little bit unexpected with the title kind of floating in the middle there. Okay, this one I switched up a little bit and I put the grid on the left page, told you, 3x4s in a group of 4. And then I didn't have another 4x6, I did a 4x3, but you can imagine in my brain, I was probably thinking I want another 4x6 there. But I was going with the dimensions of the photos that I had, so that's probably why I went with a 4x3. But it's funny how even though I'm using something that's very standardized, it's appearing over and over again, but the layouts do look very different. All right, yet another 2 4x6s on the left, and then we have a grid of 3x3 photos over here on the right. So not 3x4s, but a very similar look for a grid on the right hand side. Now, to be fair, I did not design this one. This was a close to my heart design, and probably there's a few more sprinkled in on my layouts that are also from Stampin' Up or close to my heart, but I just think it's funny how even when I'm doing a layout myself, I often come up with the same sort of design. Here is another one with, this time we have landscape 4x6s and then 4x4 grid on the other page. I love this spring layout and this little gnome on here. She's just so super cute, and it's hard to believe that Isabella was that small. She's just looking so grown up these days. Okay, here's the last one for that category. So not 2 4x6s. I have a 3x4 and a 4x6. But still that grid on the right hand side with 3x4s, 4 3x4s. This one is fun because the background is all watercolor, and I do love some good watercoloring. I believe this was a creative design team membership class. It's usually where I pull out a bunch of fun techniques. All right, my last category is a photo enlargement with a grid. And all the examples I'm going to show you, the photo enlargement is on the left, the grid is on the right. So many of my grids are on the right-hand side. It's kind of hilarious. And the funny thing about this one is that this is the video that I made, the layout that I made in the video for Jama's 20K celebration. And I was going off of her single page layout. This is often where grids come into play because she had only done a single page design. I wanted to make a matching page. And so what did I do? I made a grid. It's just so easy. And at least it wasn't just 4 3x4 photos. I did branch out a little bit and do a little bit of a different one. And then I put my journaling down here. I love this layout. And anytime that I get to use beautiful like scenery shots or enlargements, it just makes me so happy. I love looking at layouts with enlargements. So you can check out that full video on my channel. Another one that I have a video for on my channel is this one. So this is actually like an 8.5 by 11 print. Again, another nice scenery shot. Now the grid over here is a little bit more whimsical because I was using these frames. They have rounded corners and I went for more of an offset sort of design. But again, we have a grid of 4 3x3 photos. This is so much fun for me, you guys. Looking back at all these pages, I just love them so much. All right, we have another photo enlargement. Isn't that gorgeous photo? My friend Michelle took that photo of Isabella. I just love it. Now this one does have even more of a grid. It has a Pocket Plus, which is a page protector design from Close to My Heart. Stampin' Up! Is not carrying these yet. I really hope that they decide to, because I love how we can just easily add extra photos to our pages. This was like a year in review, and I believe I do have this in a video on my channel. But look at that big photo. Especially outdoors, you can get really good quality with your phone and get something that's super crisp. I just love how well you can see the blue of her eyes, which often in smaller pictures gets missed. And then I also have flip flaps. These are 3x3 flip flaps. And these are just random pictures from throughout the year. And I have documented it here. So we have adventures, amazing things that happened, basically just little snippets of life. It's basically a 2-page recap of 2023, which I think is always a fun idea. And I wish it's actually something that I did more of. You can see here, that's how it's going to sit in my album. And I love having that to look back on. I hope you guys enjoyed seeing all these grid designs. I actually have some cards with the extraordinary Flora, and I think I'm going to save those and post them on my Instagram. So if you want to go over to my Instagram this week, I will be posting them over there so you can see those up close. I hope you enjoyed watching the process and all of these grid ideas. Now, if you're ready for more inspiration, you can click on this video here, and I will see you again very soon.